I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, fire evacuation. In case of a fire, there's two ways to exit the chambers. Doors right directly behind you, or to my left, your right. Go through the double doors and out the exit, and please walk a safe distance away from the building. Mr. Secretary, roll call, please.
Madam Chair, Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Frank Alamo.
Here.
Joseph Muley.
Here.
Kenneth Zielinski.
Here.
Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Walter Crizel.
Here.
And Robert Anderson.
Here.
Okay, we did not get any minutes because our recording secretary probably didn't have enough time to do them in, so we don't have approval of the minutes. We don't have a town attorney's report, but our CEO is here. I'm so excited. Go ahead.
So in front of you is a report. It doesn't have all the violations that took place, but between the last meeting in June that I was here through November, there's been 77 enforcement actions that we took. Since June, there's been 24 sign permits and 4 banners, 30 home occupation and offices have been processed and approved or denied, 76 zoning permits. But I added in here, so each day building permits have to get approved for zoning purposes. So just from the beginning of November till now, I've done 114. So some of those take time. If you go into them, you have to search the property, make sure there's lot coverage for in case they're trying to do an addition. So it's time consuming. But like I said, that's 114 just for so far the month of November. We processed 27 bonds. And like I said, there's been 77 enforcement actions taken for the past 5 or 6 months. On the back, last month the commission had some questions about some of the projects. So they're highlighted at the end. 67 Middle Drive, which is a new home. I had a pre-construction meeting in August, and there wasn't any indication at that time from them that they weren't going to put in a slab foundation. I told them at the meeting, as I usually do at a pre-construction meeting, once the foundation is in, then they have to give us an as-built. What happened was the contractor, once I approved the permit after the pre-construction meeting, the building permit, and after that, the contractor submitted in plans that are acceptable under the building code for the helical piles or piers, unbeknownst to us. So we didn't know what was going on. We've had, because the regulations say they need a slab, they are going to pour a slab underneath the home. It's not going to be structural because the helical piers, what they do, they twist them into the ground until they reach a certain torque. Once they reach that torque limit, then that's supposed to be sustainable for the metal frame that's under the modular home to support it. So that was, like I said, we told them they need a slab no matter what. That's what the regulation says. So they're going to pour it probably within the next week or two. The parking lot expansion across the street, the most recent one, they did take down trees. I know that during one of the meetings, it was mentioned that it was just overgrowth. There were several trees that they actually did take down. And they had 2 demos for 2 houses. After they demoed the houses, they continued to do excavation work on the property without a pre-construction meeting or submission of bonds. So we put a halt to that until they came in, and then on 10/21, we had the pre-construction meeting. During the meeting, they're going to add additional arborvitae along the back Warner Avenue to compensate for the trees that they took down. And again, across the street, you'll remember they expanded the dealership parking lot, and part of that agreement or approval that was that they had to merge 6 Park Avenue. They just did it within the past 2 weeks, submitted in the application. The problem with the application is, though, on their site plan, they show a storage container, which wasn't there before. It's actually on their site plan. So I called Dana Steele, who submitted it in for the merger, and I haven't approved it yet because we need to know what the deal is with the storage container. They don't have an approval for it. Talking to the manager over there, his claim is that they want to expand the building, and they need the container right now to hold whatever equipment they have. But, so they're going to be having to come before you for the container. Stormbridge Commons on Brainerd Road. I issued a cease and desist order on that on November 3rd. And they submitted in an appeal to the ZBA for that cease and desist order. Building is still, there's 4 permits that were in, building permits that were already approved before we realized what was going on. So the building department is going to continue with the inspections on those permits. The only way they will not continue with inspections if I, under zoning, revoke the approval. And then they will stop doing inspections on the development. Dairy Queen, I went up there today. There are 2 benches in the fenced-in area on the front of the building. That wasn't supposed to be an area where anybody congregates. It was just supposed to be a pickup area. So I have to deal with that. But more importantly, there's 3 bushes that were there, and trying to pull out the driveway, they really do hinder the line of sight for traffic heading north. So we're going to have to deal with that. They're either going to have to remove them or cut them back because it's difficult pulling out of there. 604 King Street, the tree clearing. I went down there Monday morning because I noticed there was a large pile of dirt, and it has been all excavated and graded. So I issued a cease and desist for a violation of the excavation requirements. I spoke to one of there's 2 owners or principals in the LLC. I spoke to one of them today who called me, and they're going to be submitting in a special permit for an excavation, no use, but for the excavation violation to go before you. They're going to have to give you a site plan with all the grading, existing conditions, prior conditions, and there actually isn't even any E&S controls down there. They claim that they're not within the 200-foot upland review area of the river, but they're pretty close. They claim also that they have a site plan that shows the 200-foot, but we haven't seen it yet. And then 600 Infield Street. It's not on there, but on 10/31, I had a pre-con meeting with them. They do have a DOT permit. It was issued on July 30th, but it was issued to the contractor rather than the applicant or the engineer on the project, so they weren't aware of it. The issue right now is for the demo permit, you have to do all the cutoffs for utilities, and they're trying to decide where to cut off the sewer, whether in the manhole, which is in the right-of-way, which would be the obvious capping point, but they're talking about doing it actually on the property. I don't know why, but, so that's kind of the holdup right now. They don't have the full cutoff for the demo. So once they determine what they're going to do or how they're going to do it, then they can move along with the project.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
Any other questions or
No,
concerns?
Just, you've been very busy, so.
Yeah,
Go
real
ahead,
busy.
Frank.
On a Brainerd and Washington,
Yes,
so they're ceasing to desist because they marketed it over 55, or they are now marketing it over 55?
it was approved as a multifamily housing development. One of the big problems is that the plans show a 20-foot separation between the homes, the dwelling units. But they're marketing as age-restricted 55 plus. which under the regulations requires a separation of 30 feet, minimal. So they're going to have to make a determination what they want to do. It's been, the appeal is in. They'll go before the ZBA on December 15th, I believe.
So in other words, they said, okay, we're not gonna be 55 and over, it's okay, the distances.
They could if they went back to the
They went back to-
multifamily as
sorry, I
it
didn't have
stands
my
at this
mic on.
point. Yeah,
Okay. And the land clearing on King Street,
yes,
you spoke to principals in the LLC.
correct.
It is not the state of Connecticut that bought that land?
No, it's, one gentleman is out of Weathersfield and another is out of Newington. It's an LLC, two
Okay.
individuals.
Because there was rumors out there in the rumor world of Enfield that it was the state. So that's clear.
Nope,
It's
it's
not
a
the state.
private entity, LLC.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Yeah, can you, I think you kind of alluded to potentially some home occupations were rejected. Can you just give an example of what's a case where you would have rejected one?
Too much activity going to and from, or the activity being too intense for a home occupation type of approval.
Okay, great, thanks.
All set? Anybody else? No? Okay, moving on. Public participation. Anyone in the audience would like to speak about anything that is not on the agenda at this time? Anyone? Seeing no one, we're going to move on to bond releases. Mr. Secretary.
Yes, bond release, SPR number 1888, 140 to 148 Hazard Avenue, Trinity Healthcare, erosion and sedimentation control bond release request.
Okay. Staff?
No, this along with the other two were, they were all inspected, and today I received an email from John Cabibbo, the Assistant Town Engineer, who inspected all three, and they're all stabilized, and all ENS control measures have been removed.
Okay, any questions? And I will entertain a motion.
Madam Secretary, move we,
No, we're-
oh, it's got to go through the,
Or Secretary?
A motion for all three of them?
No, we're going to do one at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Individual. Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the release of the erosion sedimentation control bond in the amount of $10,000 submitted for SPR number 1888 to Consigli Construction, Inc. of 72 Sumner Street, Milford, Mass.
Second.
Okay, any questions, discussions? None? Okay. Roll call, please.
Yeah, Linda DeGray,
Four.
Frank Alamo,
4.
Ken Helinski,
4.
Vinnie Grillo,
4.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Okay, next one.
Public hearing number 2627, Cherrywood Estates, Phase 2, erosion and sedimentation control bond release request.
Did we get a little explanation about this one?
So in August, the developer contacted our office and inquired whether or not the town was still holding a bond for the project. It's been over a decade that it's been completed. So I contacted Finance Department. Well, I found a record of a memo that had a check number on it for the developer. But that's all I found. So I checked with the Finance Department, and they located and verified that the bond was still being held by the town. So he was sent out the application for the request for a release, and then he had claimed that he had dropped it off to the town, someplace in town hall. We never received it, and just recently contacted us again, and he submitted in the request.
Okay, all right. I will entertain a motion, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the release of the erosion and sedimentation control bond in the amount of $13,740 submitted for the Cherrywood Estates Phase 2 development by Homes by Guarino, Paul Guarino, applicant.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Linda DeGray,
4.
Frank Alamo.
4.
Ken Helinski.
4.
Vinnie Grillo. 4. Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Okay, moving on to the next one.
Yes. SPR number 1923, 157 South Road, erosion sedimentation control bond release request.
Nothing.
Second.
We haven't discussed any questions on this, no?
No.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the release of the erosion sedimentation control bond in the amount of $8,600 required under the SPR number 1923 approval for a self-storage project located at 157 South Road, Eric Hewitt, applicant, National Fleet Leasing LLC owner.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Frank Alamo,
4.
Ken Helinski,
4.
Vinnie Grillo, 4. Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch, 4. John Petronella is 4.
Okay, continued public hearing, PH 3136, 5 Harris Street is tabled. Secretary, when you're ready for the new public hearing, 3137.
Yes, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at the regular meeting on Thursday, November 20, 2025, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing number 3137, 78 Brainerd Road, application for a special use permit for home occupation. Kevin Ferguson and Darlene Ferguson, applicants, owners, map 36, lot 293, R33 zone.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Please come up to the table, state your name and address for the record, please.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, good evening. Carl Landolina, representing the applicant. Kevin Ferguson, owner of the property at 78 Brainerd Road. Mr. Ferguson is seated to my right. I'm sorry, I was engrossed in reading something. This is just the one special permit? We're going to have two special
Yes,
different
two
hearings?
separate
So this is the home occupation one?
This one is
Or the
for the home
conversion?
occupation.
Okay. I was hoping we'd do the other one first, because that's, but we'll get this one out of the way.
We'll get this one done.
Yeah. So I may repeat myself in the second public hearing because some of the facts are sort of germane in both matters. What I'd like to do, and this is more germane to the second one, but I may refer to it in this first hearing. I'm going to distribute floor plans of the existing structure. They're a little more detailed and probably easier to read than whatever might be in the application. So while those are being passed out, I would say that for this application, you really only have to look at the first page, which is the floor plan for the main house. This house was built back in the mid-'60s, as far as we can tell, by my client's father. Well, Legistar built the house, but your father was the first owner, right? Correct. And he tells me his father was either on the town council or planning and zoning around the same time. So in any event, my client took title after his father passed away. And you can see the first floor plan, 864 square feet. You'll see a family room in that between, let's say, the main house and the two-car garage, a 12 by 20 room. That's where there's an office right now for the company that let's say that uses that address as an office address is Ferguson Oil Company. Prior to that, Mr. Ferguson was a contractor, and he owned an operation called Ferguson Contractors or something of that nature. So that space has been used by the Ferguson family as sort of office space for the different businesses that Mr. Ferguson has run in his lifetime. As you can see, it's a fairly small area, 12 by 20. I've been in the room itself. It's accessed directly from the outside. You can walk into the house and go right into that room. It's got some computers, some telephones, and just a bunch of paperwork. As you can imagine, running an oil delivery business generates invoices and that kind of thing. I guess this relates to a issuance of a cease and desist by Mr. Richelli, because apparently there's no record of there being a registered business or at this address. Although this has been his business address for some time, as indicated in the report that staff prepared, you can see that Ferguson Oil has a business address of 78 Brainerd Road. Presently, there are two delivery trucks owned by Mr. Ferguson. Since the inception of this operation in 2012, when he bought the oil company, those trucks have been housed in East Hartford. And there is a lease in the application materials for that space. So that's where the trucks are garaged. Technically, they're registered here in Enfield. He pays taxes on the trucks in Enfield, but they're garaged in East Hartford. And I'm assuming one of the reasons is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, probably is that where your distributor is? Or is it somewhere in that area?
It's just a local medium point where we deliver.
Okay. So in any event, he's been operating the business, let's say, for what it's worth. Nobody comes or goes to that property, right? It's an oil delivery. You call him on the phone, you have a plan, a budget plan, and he delivers oil to your house, and invoices come out of that area in the house designated as a family room. Now, one of the issues that I believe that the zoning enforcement officer has is whether Mr. Ferguson is a resident of Enfield and lives in the home. So I can tell you Mr. Ferguson's license has 78 Brainerd Road as his home address. He votes here in Enfield. He's a registered voter. And you'll hear in the next application that he does have two tenants living in the property, but he also has a sort of I won't even call it an apartment, maybe a studio place for himself in the basement. He owns another property two properties in Weathersfield. One belongs to his son, technically. He's on the mortgage, however, so his name's on the title. His son lives there. And he owns a property next to that house where he rents out that other house. His wife lives in North Carolina. So he spends some time in North Carolina. He spends some time with his son in Weathersfield, and he spends some time at the house in Enfield. So, actually, anecdotally, I like to tell my stories. I was doing some research today about STRs, short-term rentals, and I don't know if this is an issue that you guys have grappled with. I was kind of surprised because it's for a case in Windsor Locks, and I don't know what the attraction would be to run an Airbnb in Windsor Locks. We're not on the shore or anything, but I guess they're all over the place. Maybe people like to go to the Air Museum and stay. So there are a number of cases, one in the federal system. The leading case comes out of the Court of Appeals out of Louisiana, which has really nothing to do with this issue, except that there is a leading case in Connecticut that talks about what does it mean to be a residence somewhere. And in the case, this is sort of the opposite circumstance, where you have people that are short-term renters, 3 days, 5 days, maybe most of them in Airbnbs live there less than a month. But the Supreme Court in Connecticut has said, unless you specifically state what a resident is, and if you allow people to rent out, I could rent out my house on an annual basis, the amount of time that someone spends in the house, whether it be 2 days, a month, or is a permanent, that's the only place where they lay their head, so to speak, has nothing to do as to whether they're a resident of the property and therefore can use residential property as their home. So I guess that presents a question which you probably haven't addressed before, I'm guessing in this context. But so he does reside in the house. I'm not going to tell you he resides there full time. Now, if it was just that, I guess we could have asked Rick under your regulations to allow us, because he has the authority to allow people to have, as you know, home occupations without coming before you. In this case, he wouldn't be able to, even if we convinced Rick or you that he was a resident of Enfield or a resident at 78, he has a person who works there. This is a person who answers the phone, does some billing. She's there about 25 hours a week.
Yes.
Kevin, that about right?
Yes.
All right. About how many nights a year do you think you spend there?
Probably a couple days a week.
Okay. And that's when you're not at
Right.
Weathersfield or
Right.
North Carolina?
Right.
Okay. So the only time you'll see a truck there is he might stop, or his other driver. He drives one of the trucks, obviously. It's not big enough for him to not drive one of the trucks. If somebody's stopping, one of the trucks is stopping to drop off invoices or the tickets that are printed, out of the back of the truck when they deliver oil. The trucks they're not garaged there. They don't, I don't know, if occasionally the truck might spend a night when he's sleeping there.
No, never.
Okay, you go back to the, all right. So that's kind of it. Since Rick has issued a cease and desist, we thought we'd come and ask you for a special permit under the regulations because we do have an employee. There's plenty of parking out front. So this really boils down to, I think, whether you believe Mr. Ferguson is a resident and whether his oil company, that, again, this could be any business in the world, all right, that's being done there. Any business that doesn't have anybody, no one goes there, just his employee, and all they're doing is producing invoices and getting mail there. So the type of business is really, it's just a place where computers and phones are located. So that's kind of where we are. Now, could I have a minute? I thought about something when I was sitting back there. I had to check with my client before I made this statement. I was going to tell you in any event that the business is up for sale, right? His wife wants him in North Carolina. So it's been up for sale. He had a buyer last year, but it fell through. So, obviously, he wants to do that and sell it. Now, typically, as you know, in my world, you're going to grant this permit for us tonight, but, okay, that's the world I live in. But typically, when it's a special permit, it runs with the land, all right? If you were to consider this permit and give it to him, we would agree to a condition that says that the right to operate any type of business out of this structure will cease when the oil company is sold. So that's not going to run with the land. And if you wanted to make that a condition, that's something we think we could agree on, obviously, and I think that would bind us and, future owners of the property. If they looked at the special permit, which would be recorded, it would say this permit will end when Ferguson Oil is sold to a new buyer. And we would agree to inform you of that as soon as it happens. Yes, I am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Staff?
Good evening. Rick and I are going to tag team this. So this first one is for the home occupation approval. During my review, it appeared that he did not satisfy the requirement of residing on the residence, which is under the definition of home occupation and home office within the zoning regulations. He's here tonight for a special permit approval since his employees are not residents of the building. I do want to point out he is over the aquifer protection area, so he should not be having oil trucks park at the residence out of precaution for the aquifer protection area. That's pretty much all I have. Did you have anything to add?
I can only give you a short synopsis of how this transpired. Back in May 22nd, 23, I issued a notice of violation for the home occupation and also the oil business being operated from, and the duplex, not the duplex, but the rental of the second unit that was constructed there. In 1970, the building permit was approved or submitted in for just additional living space. They never did a inspection. The building department never did an inspection after that point. It just went in as a living space, additional living space, and that was it. Mr. Ferguson went to the ZBA on the notice of violation, which was denied on September 25th of 2023. He then met with myself and Matt Davis at the time on January 24th of 2024 and discussed the special use permit application. At that time, he said he had some medical issues and he wouldn't be able to get around to it right away. He was planning on having an operation. Didn't hear from him for some period of time. On March 21st, I issued the cease and desist order. And on May 8th, I also issued a citation. As for the voting records, I also have voting records showing him as a voter in Wethersfield. Mr. Ferguson gave us some documentation. He actually applied for a special permit back in 2024, but because of he's having problems with being able to get that special permit through because of the issues with him living also in Wethersfield and not being a resident. We didn't consider him a resident of Enfield at the time at the house. So we gave him some time, and he didn't reach out back to us about it. That's why I issued the cease and desist and then the citation. We do have photos, or I have photos of trucks being parked at the residence in the driveway from time to time over the past few years. And as recently as November 7th, they listed the house for rental, a one-bedroom, 1,000 square foot in-law apartment, separate entrance, one-car garage, many updates, tenant pays oil and cable and internet, Owner pays electricity, water. This in-law apartment does not share any walls with the main house. Non-smoker and no pets. I printed this out on the 8th of November. The entry was from Darlene Kevin at 860-965-9272. It's just something to show that during all this going on, he's still offering the residents up for rental.
And there's no special permit approval for the parking of the commercial vehicles at their residence.
Okay, anything else? Walter, you have anything? Denny?
Okay, so just one quick two. First of all, Mr. Ferguson, we're actually doing something right now with this, putting something together with these trucks on properties. That truck doesn't belong on any residential property, period, except to drop oil.
Driveway or something, deliver
It, we have pictures of it on, you're not delivering oil, it's on the property, it's staying on it. We just don't allow that. I can move on from that, but that's one. And quick question, if you don't mind me asking, what's your license address? On your license, what's the address?
78 Brandon Road,
In Enfield.
yes.
So his license is in Enfield, but he's
I vote in Enfield.
vote in.
Sir, you need to talk into the microphone.
I vote in Enfield.
I'm just trying to.
And, right, name and address if you're going to speak.
Kevin Ferguson, 78 Brandon Road.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Vinnie. I'm sorry.
And then he votes, don't you have to live in Weathersfield to vote in?
Last time I tried to vote in Enfield, they said I wasn't registered, so I went back to Weathersfield to vote when the president election.
Yeah.
For the last election, I voted in Enfield.
It's really not key. I'm just trying to figure out if you actually really even live there, if it's just a rental property. My biggest concern, which actually that doesn't bother me as much, is that truck. We're putting together something, we just talked about that. The truck on the property just doesn't belong on an R33, period, at any given time except to drop oil off. That's what we're saying in Enfield. That's what our rules are. The weight is way over what it is on an oil truck, and they just don't belong at a residential area. Just like semis don't, anything with 4 axles. I could go on and on. I know there's a lot, sir, but
There's a lot
he's
of
only
trucks
one guy
There's a
and
lot
he's
of trucks
getting
that
them.
park overnight, and I don't even park them overnight. And I've been parking my trucks in East Hartford since 2009, and I pay taxes on the trucks here. I could register them in East Hartford, you know? That's where I've been. I've had a business there. I was a builder for 30 years, and then I got into oil business. I had an oil building business since 1980.
Okay,
I ran the office out of there.
okay. Thank you.
Walter?
Where is the business listed in the Secretary of State's office?
So the business is listed at 78 Brainerd Road. However, the residence listed through the Secretary of State's office annual report for 2023 says the residence is actually two. Originally, it was 53 Harold Street and 47 Harold Street in Weathersfield, Connecticut.
That's it.
Joe? Thank you. Joe, do you have any?
Well, I would have to agree that the parking of the oil truck is concerning. Parking it there for any period of time, making deliveries are two different things. I don't know, it seems like his residency seems to be, he's a resident in Enfield, but then he lives in, was it Weathersfield too? I don't know, I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm torn.
Frank?
Yeah, I guess torn's a good word for it. I'm torn too. Being a lifelong resident here of Enfield, I know the Fergusons have been there for these dates. Probably are correct. And wasn't the Ferguson Oil Company before you? You're not.
No, I started it.
You started it, but there was always the Fergusons were there.
Ferguson Contractors, we had a
Right.
business. We
Forever.
used to build houses.
Yeah, forever. So I guess I'm a little torn between now all of a sudden and they've been there all these years, forever. As long as I can remember, the Fergusons have been there as brothers and sisters, and I just, from living in town, I just know that. So I just don't know why this is bubbling up now. I guess that's where I'm concerned. And as far as oil trucks, no, you can't park oil trucks overnight.
I have a lease.
Yeah, it's in the packet, right. I heard Attorney Landolina say you lease, and we have evidence of that. I'm just, I guess, wondering why, after all these years, this has surfaced. Because I know the Fergusons have been there forever, just from being here, as long as you have, probably.
Terrence?
Yeah, a couple of quick questions. You have what was called in our packet, the in-law apartment out for rent as of the beginning of the month. And the in-law apartment was never approved as an in-law apartment. And if you're calling it an in-law apartment, the only thing that it says, it's got to be a family member. It's got to be an in-law. The next question I have is, who is living, I know you said that you stay downstairs a couple of nights a week, maybe, or who lives on the first floor of the main house? Nobody?
The main structure is rented out to a couple, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're,
So now we got a three-family house.
no,
If he's a true resident of that house, we have a three-family house. We have the in-law apartment, we have the main house that's being rented, and we have a place where he sleeps when he pleases. Am I mistaken? So there's
I
three-
wouldn't necessarily
So
characterize
there's
it that
three
way.
separate families as residents of that house. You're the one who told me he's a resident.
Yeah.
Well,
You're the one, we have another family here that rents the first floor, and we have another apartment that's there to be rented. Does that make it a three-family house? Just asking.
I don't have an answer for you, but first of all, I never called it an in-law apartment, and I guess we'll deal with that issue in the next hearing.
Or just
But
doing
but you're right, there is a carryover because, right, in order to have his business run out of this home, he has to be in residence there.
And it's got to be a resident that runs the office.
No.
No.
That's why we need the special permit. He can have an employee who doesn't live there
Can have an
work in the office.
He needs to live there, so.
Yeah.
All set?
Yeah, right now.
Ken?
Yeah, I don't think 2 days a week is being a resident. I think you have to live there, and, maybe you're gone sometimes and you're on vacation or something, but frankly, 2 days a week, I don't think you're living there. Somebody's living there. I don't consider that somebody having their residence there for 2 days a week.
Christian?
I don't have any questions. I mean, I think as far as the residence piece goes, I mean, yeah, that's a really tricky one, but I mean, I think the point about if there's already two tenants in what could be a two-family home, would that be his residence too? I mean, I feel like that's a tough part. Plus, like the business record too. I mean, we're looking at an application to run a business, and if the residence with the Secretary of State, which maintains business records, says the residence is in Weathersfield, I mean, that kind of puts us in a tough spot.
That house was sold. One of the houses in Weathersfield was sold.
So that Which, I mean, to be fair, that was 2023. So that data is out of date then, you're saying?
Which house was sold?
53 Harold.
Okay, so
That
you,
I didn't even own that. It was my wife's house before I met her.
okay, all right. Rob, any questions?
Where do you sleep when you do sleep there?
Where
Do you sleep in the office? When you're in Enfield?
I got a bed in the basement.
Of the main house?
No,
It's access through the secondary apartment, the accessory apartment.
So it's a separate basement to the accessory apartment.
That's where you stay, right?
That's separate.
Yeah, there's a basement under that addition that was built in 1970. That's going to be the subject of the next hearing. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say one thing?
Please.
There's a lot of people that have, they're builders, electricians, have their businesses in their home, their office in their home, and they have a girl come in and do their books and stuff like that. Basically, that's all I got. The phones are transferred, tickets are printed via, remotely, and they go through the printer, through the internet, and I just stop and get stuff.
Okay.
The mail comes there.
And where, you're telling me that the tickets get printed, and that's through the internet. Now, do they get printed where? Where do you drive from Wethersfield to Enfield to your driver, your other driver?
No, usually I'll take the tickets every day with me. Like I took them tonight
Where are they being printed out?
in Enfield on Brainerd Road.
Thank you. And
Like the phones will ring, they'll go to my cell phone, I got them transferred.
where do you stay? You said you stay in Enfield 2 nights a week?
Something like that.
Where do you stay the rest of the time?
Sometimes I stay with my son. It all depends what time I get done at night. In the wintertime, if it's a lot of traffic, I'll stay in Wethersfield.
So you're staying with your son at least 5 nights a week?
Sometimes, yes.
That's, and part of our regulation says that you have to live in the house. And the person that works for you, do they live in any of this 3-family house?
No.
They don't. So they're the people who live in the main house basically have no access to the family room. They just have the living, from this drawing, the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, and then access to the upstairs.
Correct. And access to that your backyard through a slider.
Okay. I'm just having, this is so tangled. And the fact that you're only in town, you're saying twice a week, that I don't feel that's a residence. Because and I don't even know if this basement has any egress for a legal egress. If in case there was ever a fire or an emergency where somebody had to get out very quickly. So
There's a hatchway from that area up to the.
Yeah.
So for a bedroom in the basement, the building inspection would have had to come out and inspect it and then make sure there's proper egress, and inspection has not been done.
Okay, that's another issue altogether. So,
You know I don't like to bring easy stuff here.
of course you don't.
Anyone can do the easy stuff.
We love your stories. That's
Chris
why
Smith is going to have one He's probably not listening now. He'll have probably an easy one.
Sure, Frank.
I have a question relative to what the chair was talking about, residency. Carl, you read us a description of a civil Connecticut Supreme Court document talking about residency.
Right.
So which one, is it the planning and zoning rules that govern residency, or is it the state law?
No, as the case I referred to is a interpretation of a local zoning regulation.
And what was that? Could you repeat that again? I'm a little
So
lost there.
in this particular case, the town argued that you couldn't rent out your house for less than 30 days because it was a single-family residence, and people who stayed in a house less than 30 days weren't residents, and therefore didn't meet the definition of a residence.
30 consecutive days or 30 days within a year?
30 consecutive days.
Okay.
And again, that's a different context because people are renting their houses out for weekends or a week here and there. It's more popular down at the shore or popular places. But so the court said we don't determine whether someone is a resident by the number of days they spend at the house. And a single-family residence allows people to be in resident there, residing there, whether they're there 2 days a week or they live there, that's their only place of residence.
So under the opinion of that reading from the court, under that guide, he would be a resident.
You could, I'm making an analogy to the two, and, that would be, I'm not going to give you legal advice.
No, I'm trying to figure this out.
Yes, that's the argument I'm making.
30
Yes,
consecutive
is that-
days.
No.
So
Well, no,
if he's
he-
not there 30 consecutive days, then he's not a resident.
But that's
No,
not
the
what he
court
said.
said you don't
That's not
have
what
to-
the court said.
Oh,
The
I'm
town
sorry.
said you have to
Then
be
I
here.
misunderstood.
So I'm saying, that's what I said before. We have a town rule and a court decision.
We determine,
And I don't know.
Right.
So
so,
that's where I am.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I understand.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
explanation.
Right. This is why I want to do the other one first.
any more questions?
But-
I do.
Go ahead, Ken.
Someone, it might have been you, Frank, somebody mentioned, why now? How did this all come up?
Yeah.
And I think there was a complaint by one of the residents. Is that true in 2023?
That's correct.
There was a complaint
Oh,
by
was
the
there?
resident
Okay.
saying that Mr. Ferguson was.
Oh, I know the family's been there forever.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that.
He used to live behind us.
That's right.
I know.
used to live
That's why
behind
I'm
you.
lost too. I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
So,
But you can own a house and not live in it, so.
so apparently what started all this was the complaint,
okay.
I guess,
Yeah.
and some of that.
Oh.
Because how long have you been
Like forever.
living there, running the oil business out of there? Out of your 78 Brainerd Road,
2012.
2012.
I run from the contracting business to the oil.
Did you run the contracting business out of there too?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, okay,
I remember that.
okay.
That's where I get lost with these things that come up like this, that I know have been there forever, and the people have been there forever, and then all of a sudden
Well,
they're
it
here.
sounds like it's just, a thing that's been going on for years and was a violation for years, really.
And then when they did the addition, the
Yeah.
building department never went out and inspected it.
Yeah, that was,
The building permit's got check marks on it. I don't know if that means it was inspected or what.
No.
The responsibility of the inspection is on the applicant through the building department. So if you do an addition and it's completed, then the applicant or the builder contractor then has to call and schedule an inspection. So if it's just a living space addition at the time, you were talking back in 1970 when it was put on, if they didn't call for an inspection, the building department at that time probably just, it went away and filed away with the other 100 or 150 that came in over a 6-month period.
So by a building permit and a subsequent inspection generates the tax. That's how they tax the property. That's how it comes on the tax rolls.
Initially,
So-
but
Is he
your
paying
assessor
tax?
goes out.
I'm sorry?
The assessor goes out. It used to be every 10 years.
Right.
And probably I don't know when it got added to the tax rolls, but we're sort of getting a feel of that. But, that's why I said they're sort of connected. But that whether they're inspections or not is really not relevant to this question
Yeah.
or the next one, to be honest with you, because after 6 years, under state statute, if I have built something and it's been there for 6 years, I don't need a CO after that. It just automatically exists, and it gets added to the rolls. And
gets added to the, that's another part. Now, so it's
Yeah.
added to the tax. Oh, my God, this is,
The tax bill says in-law apartment on the tax.
and that's what you're paying taxes on? In-law apartment?
Okay. Any other
Excuse me.
questions? Yep.
Okay, I just want to remind the commission what you heard tonight does not satisfy the definition of a home occupation, home office, in the sense that it has to be clearly a customary, incidental, and accessory use of a residential dwelling unit, which does not alter the exterior of the building, the property, or the residential character of the neighborhood. So I just wanted to state that.
Okay. And this is a public hearing, so.
Can I just make a few comments before you open it up, Madam Chair? So the fact that it's somebody's been operating a business out of there for, a couple decades, maybe close to 3, and the first complaint came from somebody who was one of the tenants, I think that you could surmise from that it didn't alter the character of the neighborhood. If you drive by, you don't see anything different than you do on any of the houses on the street. Mr. Lynch, that was a great question you asked, and it got me thinking, okay? So obviously, I could see how at first blush you might say this is a 3-family, but the definition of a unit must include kitchen facilities. So there's not a 3-family there. I'm going to argue there's a 2-family, but there can't be a 3 because there's not a separate kitchen and, right, in that basement bedroom. So, again, I can't, as to whether it was ever inspected and so on, and whether it's, I'm just dealing with the facts on the ground as they exist. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I do want to point out the residential character would be altered in a sense that there's now parking of commercial vehicles and the density increase with an additional tenant.
We don't want to park any vehicles there. He drives by, drops off tickets, whatever. If you want to make that a condition of approval, that, I don't know, that no commercial vehicles be related to the business, be parked there for more than an hour at a time or something. I don't know. I don't want to make Rick's job any harder, but, he said that he's got a place, he's paying for a place for the trucks to be parked, and that's where they're parked, in East Hartford.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public. So I'm going to ask you gentlemen to step back. And Susan Sorrow? Yes, you're going to have to come up.
Do you want me to move them?
I would prefer you.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Okay, name and address for the record, please. And we're just talking about the home business at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Susan Sorrow, 18 Field Road. I am an abutter to the south side of the property that we are discussing. Mr. Landolina, I don't know if I got that name right, spins quite a tale. But let me tell you what I have observed as an abutter since August of 2009. Neither Mr. nor Mrs. Ferguson have ever lived at or occupied at 78 Brainerd Road whatsoever since my history as an abutter. It bothers me that when you go on Google Maps, it looks like I have an oil yard in the back of my property because Ferguson Oil comes up at 78 Brainerd Road. I hope in all this, as it goes on, there's a cease and desist on using that as a listed address. Get a P.O. box. He does not live there. I don't know if he was mentioning his son's house as being the 47 Harold Street in Wethersfield. However, that property is listed under Darlene and Kenneth Ferguson. There was a quitclaim on it in May 16th of 2023, which is right about the time this whole process began with that complaint by former tenants. As an abutter, I submitted a letter when this all started. I submitted a letter for zoning board ZBA number 2023-06-20 on July 24th of 2023. I stand by everything that's in that letter. I'm mentioning that as a neighbor along that southern border. He kept a large utility trailer parked along my property fence, and as you know, for home occupations, you're not supposed to have any kind of signage or storing of extra home business accoutrements, I guess, on the property that's visible from other properties. I never reported that, but I knew it was in violations. He eventually did move it, but it took quite some time. Also, his oil truck at that time, this is from my letter of 2023, was often parked in the driveway or on the grass dirt area. I would see this as I traveled on Brainerd. Also, it would be visible from my backyard as well. Parking is also granted to the residents of his two sections of that house. The tenants on the Colonial side have at least a couple cars. Their children are getting older, so they'll probably maybe be getting cars as well. At the time, he had at least two people in his office space. I had observed a female who would come every morning and go into that office space and park and then leave at the end of a work shift day. I had to go in there one time to speak to him. The area was very crowded, cluttered, and unkept in there. The right-hand side of the garage is afforded to the renter in his illegal apartment behind the garage. They get the right-hand side of the garage, so you would have to keep that area of the driveway completely open so those occupants could come and go. And I've known many of the tenants over the course of the 14 years that I've been there, and they would often comment about how they would open up the garage door and they couldn't even back out because there was vehicles blocking their way, including the oil truck. The only error I have on that letter was that I said the coming and going of said vehicles for normal resident activities plus business activities, and even with parking on the dirt along the property's west boundary, it should read east boundary. Seemed excessive for a residentially zoned property. Now to the more current, I can't believe we are here over 2 years later and there's been no changes in how he operates, how he represents himself for occupancy, which I'll get to with the next matter, and how he represents his use of the office. Like I said, if he lives at 47 Harold Street in Weathersfield, first and foremost, I agree with the bedroom basement thing. Part of the basement on the Colonial side is finished, and that the family there uses that. So if he is just down in that area below the add-on apartment, there's no egress in there. I can speak to that. From what I can see on his building, there's just your typical hatchway. There are no egress windows from any parts of the basement. So let's talk about residency and home occupations. You all know the definitions, not going to go into that. I've read it quite a bit, and I would like to say Mr. Rochelle has done a great job with a lot of the follow-through. I was shocked that this was still going on when I called him, when I saw the sign in the front yard. Let me give you some examples. Home occupations in less than half a mile from where this property is. Johnny Lock is on Brainerd. The owner lives there. There's mother and daughter crafters right around the corner from me. They sell online as well as at craft sales and all that. They live there. Professional photographer over on Catherine. She lives there. A gentleman also around the corner on Drummond, professional woodworker. His LinkedIn says, "I make beautiful things from wood in my garage." He lives there. So, Mr. Ferguson advertises that he delivers to, picture the Connecticut map, Hartford County, Tolland County, Middlesex County, and New London counties. And yes, most of that is centered around Hartford County, and his East Hartford garaging is smack dab in the middle. So why is he driving 16 miles north to the northern border of his territory to do his office work? In today's world of electronics and everything else, it doesn't take much. And at 47 Harold Street in Weathersfield, there is 400 square feet of finished basement with a walkout. Perfect place for his home occupation to do his paperwork, irregardless if he's going to sell this within the next year. Like I said, his ads and his social media list a single-family residence as his business address. That needs to stop. It could be detrimental harm to my home value. Should I go to sell, and so everyone does everything electronically, they would see the highway near my house, they would see the apartments near my house, and then they would see an oil company listed in my backyard. That should not be listed as a business address. Let's speak of oil delivery companies and addresses. Rich's Oil Service and Delivery office is located at 12 Moody Road. How about Troiano's? There's other names that show up as well at this office. I don't know if they're still there, but the office.
Ma'am, I see where you're going, and you have all this information, but we're talking about this particular property. And I understand you did all this great work, and if you'd like, you can give it into the record. You can give it to our staff, and it will be part of this record. But
I think precedent's talking about the same
we're hearing
business.
Yes, we're hearing this, okay?
All right, so pretty much every oil company around here has an office and not a residential place. And so let's talk about parking the vehicles, the commercial vehicles. 3.30.13, commercial vehicles. The parking of commercial vehicles may be permitted in residential zones as an accessory use only and subject to the following restrictions. Paragraph B, all commercial vehicles, regardless of GVW, shall meet the following standards, lowercase I. No vehicle should have more than 2 axles. Then it talks about not obstructing traffic and all this. No vehicle containing hazardous waste or materials may be parked on a residential lot, period, stop. No dropping off tickets, no anything. No tanker trucks or similar type vehicles used for hauling liquids, including but not limited to oil trucks, septic cleanout trucks, etc., shall be allowed whatsoever in a residential section. What I would like to note to the commission is that Mr. Ferguson uses his oil truck as his commuter vehicle. And I can support this, and I can share photos if you'd like, but just give me a moment to do a little detailed reporting for you. November 11th, 9 days ago. I have a picture of him parked at 78 Brainerd Road, parallel with Brainerd, parallel with the sidewalk, not delivering oil at 12:41. I did not note how long it had been there because I came last week thinking this hearing was last week. 2 days ago, November 18th, his truck arrived at his 78 Brainerd Road at 12:32 in the afternoon. 12:39, he backed it up onto the grass. He did deliver some oil to that illegal apartment area to top it off because that person is moving out and clearly had to have that final bill. Pulled it back forward, kind of more into his parking areas, if you will, at 12:44. Did not leave until 1:27, 55 minutes later. Today, November 20th, I go to walk my dog. It was a little cold this morning. I was waiting for the sun to come out, so I went out a little later than usual. I get out at the intersection of Field and Drummond, and voila, what's parked at Drummond, almost up in the intersection with Brainerd, but the Ferguson oil truck. I saw it at 9:49. I documented it on my phone at 10 o'clock because I had to go back home and get my phone to take the picture. And I videoed it, that it was empty and unoccupied and not delivering. So that was, let's say, 10 o'clock. Got back from my walk around 10:40. It was still there. All right, went back out around 11. It was still there. So we're at a good hour now. Around 11:40 or so, it had left and gone down Brainerd, but then it doubled back, came over to Drummond, hooked to Huey, came back out to Brainerd as if like, oh, I forgot something. Now parks on the grassy strip across Brainerd from his property at 78 Brainerd, so along that fence by Mass Mutual, on the grassy strip off of Brainerd. And he's parked there at 11:40. He did not leave until 12:37, nearly another hour later. So just today alone, he was there for nearly 3 hours. So any kind of testimony that the trucks do not come and go, they do not spend time there, is completely false and a misrepresentation. His driveway is kind of a mess. If he has a hazardous waste issue or an accident or a spill, we will not just have an aquifer problem, we'll have a soil management problem as well, all along that property. So that's the main gist of what I'd like to say right now on that. He is not a resident whatsoever at that point, and he is not following the cease and desist that he was given in October of 2023 about the truck and about the parking and about the safety of those of us in a single-family residential neighborhood and our well-being. So thank you for right now.
Thank you. Would you like to address?
No, we have nothing further to offer.
Okay. Yes.
So, I mean, I personally was kind of getting caught up in the residency stuff, and I feel like we all kind of were. But if we don't even, let's just take a step back from that and just talk about the fact that it's a home occupation for an oil business. I mean, I think it's pretty clear from the evidence that we've been given that the oil business can't be run, seemingly can't be run without the trucks coming and going. It feels like between us, commissioners, it feels like well, I mean, actually, it's not even our opinion. It's in our regulations. Oil trucks not allowed in residential. I don't think there's any way to square that, really. So, I mean, even if we were to say, okay, he lives in one of potentially 2 units there, should he be operating an oil business out of his home? It's not just an office. It seems it's the location of an oil business, and it doesn't seem like. I mean, and please, the applicant is welcome to respond to it. But to me, it doesn't seem that this oil business can be run without the trucks coming and going. So, I mean, that feels like a hard stop to me. I mean, yeah, the building has residential character, but yeah, I don't. I think that business itself. I mean, we talked. Rick was telling us about home occupations that were denied because of intensity that was too high. I mean, he would not approve this application because this is, well, I mean, it's employing another non-resident, so he couldn't approve it either way. But maybe if he could, through the chair to staff, if we could get the opinion to say, if there was not another non-resident working at this business, how would you consider the intensity of this use?
I wouldn't be approving it just because of the intensity for an oil business in a residential property.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I will admit, listening to the public residents' testimony, the parking of oil trucks over grassy areas concerns me as the Aquifer Protection Agent. The Aquifer Protection Agency conditioned one particular oil business with his trucks, saying that he could not park his trucks on the grassy area of his site and that he had to remain on concrete or a slab for risk of polluting the aquifer. So, I mean, regardless of the oil trucks, the commercial vehicle regulation would also not be satisfied.
Okay. Go ahead.
It seems to me, and staff, maybe you might want to weigh in on this through the chair, that if Mr. Ferguson was living there and the only thing he was doing was his clerical stuff and collecting tickets somehow without the trucks coming, it probably would be a viable business use, correct?
It would be approvable under a special permit if he had another employee that wasn't a resident there.
Okay, okay, but that could be done.
Yes,
Okay.
without the trucks.
So the lady who does the clerking and all that stuff, she could be there. He has to live there permanently, and then no trucks.
Correct.
And the trucks are already parked in East Hartford, so, you know, you don't really need to park them at the residence. Okay? I'm thinking, this is just my thinking. So that might be something that's compatible to the commission, I think. Okay. Oh, one more thing. Mr. Lanley, you mentioned there were no complaints and all that kind of stuff, but the fact is he was in violation and somebody finally said something. And so it sounds like it hasn't been all that quiet in the neighborhood.
No, the point that I was trying to make, Commissioner Helinski, was that there's a portion of these regulations that require that the house remains sort of intact as it in a residential, viewing. It looks like a house when you drive by it. That was the only intention. I don't, look, representing towns, throughout the state, just because it's been going on for a long time is not a reason, but I think that it should continue to go on. So, if I was advising a commission, I would never say, oh, sure. Yeah, just because, no, unless it's a non-conforming use, we're not getting into that. But I'm just saying, for this particular application, that's context, but, it boils down to, A, is he in residence, right? And then your view on whether he meets the other requirements in the special permit section of your regulations.
Sure. Okay, I'm good.
Anyone else? All right. Yes.
Commissioner Helinski, I was actually thinking something similar to you previously in that if we could be assured that, he lived there full time and the trucks were not involved in the slightest, it was literally just an office. But we are like 2 years out from the initial complaint, a cease and desist order has been issued and there's still truck activity. So, I mean, I'm not really seeing a good faith attempt to operate the business without the trucks. So, could we actually? I mean, like, yes, on paper we could say, hey, we approve this with the condition that trucks not be involved, but that's basically the current state right now with the cease and desist, and it's not being followed. So I don't see what our condition is going to do if the cease and desist isn't being followed. So, yeah.
Yes.
So we mentioned other oil companies in town, just for a scenario. Let's say there was a person driving for another oil company in town, and this person went to his home, to his residence, for morning break, for lunch, and for afternoon break with the oil truck, and parked it in his driveway because he's employed by the oil company. Is it illegal for him to go home for lunch or go home for break and go home?
That kind of sounds like a different scenario because typically a lunch break and stopping for a quick thing is not 3 hours long or overnight sometimes. So I wouldn't necessarily compare those two types of things. Stopping at home for an hour to grab something to eat, I mean, that's one thing, but you're still on the clock. You're going to go back out. You're not going to park and leave your vehicle there, especially on grass.
Okay.
Okay. Open it back up to the public if they, all right.
It's already, he's testified, and I didn't hear, he wants this to be on the record again.
Okay.
The trucks have never stayed there overnight.
I want to testify one thing that, you know, some of these guys that are on the board, been around a long time. Rich's Oil had his company on North Maple Street at his parents' house, and the trucks were parked in the back, right near the river that went through there, for umpteen years. Now he's moved over to Moody Road. But my trucks has never parked there overnight, never. And I started parking on the side street over on Drummond Road, and I guess to go to the office, so I'm not creating a traffic, and I guess it's probably an eyesore. I don't know. My trucks are in great shape. They're brand new, most of them. They don't leak oil. We have to have them federally inspected every year. They're roadworthy, you know. I don't know what to tell you. If I have to stay away from the house with the oil trucks is one thing, but I have had that office there for since 1980. So what are you talking? You're talking 45 years. A home office. And there's plenty of people, electricians. I can drive around town and tell you there's tractor trailers, horses that are parked in people's yards up and down Brainerd Road. And they're there for days at end, a week. I know other guys that park their trucks to go to drive oil trucks. They stop at their house to use the bathroom. You know, it's a way of life. You know, we're trying to make a living. That's all I got to say.
Okay, anything?
Can I add?
Yes, you can rebuttal. Name and address, please.
Susan Sorrow, 18 Field Road. I want to remind Mr. Ferguson and the commission that he is dealing with hazardous waste, no matter how good his truck is. I have a son who's a professional geologist, works on the Superfund cleanup places all across the United States. There is no 3 strikes and you're out when it comes to hazardous waste. It's 1 strike and we all have a big problem on our hands. We just had an oil truck tip over down, at 95 down along the shoreline, close down the highway for hours. So there is no 3-strike rule when it comes to hazardous waste. I think, what else did he say? I can't remember. So I'll just go with that.
It's okay. Thank you.
And, I'm sorry, I just remembered. What's your definition of park? I guess that's what it comes down to. When I park my car, I drive it up in the driveway, or I drive it in the garage, put it in park, turn it off, take my key out, go do something, come back. That's my definition of parking. And it is not allowed in a residential period for even like a lunch thing. I would say that would be illegal within the confines of the definitions of commercial vehicles being in a residential lot with oil tankers. You get out of the truck, you turn it off, you take your key. That's my definition of you are parked. And that is what's not allowed according to the commercial vehicles, oil trucks in residential areas. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Secretary, just for the home office.
A roll call to close.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is to close the public hearing. Linda DeGray,
4.
Frank Alamo,
4.
Ken Helinski,
4.
Vinnie Grillo,
4.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
John Petronella is 4.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for PH 3137.
Yes, Madam Chair.
We can have discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3137, 78 Brainerd Road, application for special use permit to allow home office under section 4.50.5, Kevin Ferguson, applicant owner, map 36, lot 293, R33 zone.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Benny, you look like you want to say something.
No, I'm going to wait for the vote and just do what I have to, I guess.
Joe?
We can't prove he's there enough to consider him living there. And he's running an oil business, and trucks are going there. That's not allowed.
Frank?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Terrence?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. All right.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Linda DeGray,
Against.
Frank Alamo,
Abstain.
Ken Helinski,
Against.
Vinnie Grillo,
Against.
Joseph Muley,
Against.
Terrence Lynch,
Against.
John Petronella is against.
Okay.
061.
Okay. And, Mr. Secretary, when you're ready for PH 3138. And that would be for the duplex.
Yes. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at their regular meeting on Thursday, November 20, 2025, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers at 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing number 3138, 78 Brainerd Road, application for a special permit for a duplex. Kevin and Darlene Ferguson, applicants, owner, map 36, lot 293, R33 zone.
And before we start, staff, do we have to give a reason for our denial of that last application?
I always recommend giving reasons for denial.
Okay, and I believe it was the type of business in the area, the oil trucks being there, it's not allowed.
Yep,
Also, I believe, if I may, the applicant did not demonstrate
Residency.
or satisfy the requirement of home occupancy, business, and residency
Yes.
of the
Okay.
property.
All right. Okay, moving on to this duplex. You're on again.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, Carl Landolina, representing the applicant, Kevin Ferguson, who is seated to my right. I'm going to cover some of the same things we covered in the last hearing, but for purposes of the record being complete in this, for everyone's benefit, I may, as I say, be repeating myself. So I just want to step back for a second and put this into context for you, because this is about the fourth one of these I've done in the last year and a half. Every one of them has been a result of a complaint. First, probably a cease and desist has been issued. Someone's brought it to someone's attention, Rick's, and we found that there are 2, 3, 4-family houses that have not been legally recognized by the town in any fashion. So this follows sort of the same pattern as others I've come to you before you in the last 18 months or so. And if you recall, one of the things that we always discussed is that you have two different sections in your regulations that deal with essentially the same issue. They are 4.30.2, which is not the definition, but the title is conversion of buildings for residential purposes. And then you've got another section immediately following, 4.30.3, which is entitled duplex residences. And I thought, memory serves, that because in each of the cases where I represented people similarly situated, we only followed one of those sections. We didn't have to comply with both of them. And then you'll notice in staff report, staff has done this analysis to determine average density within a certain radius of the property. That analysis is required under 4.30.3, not under 4.30.2. We are not applying under 4.30.3. We are applying under 4.30.2, which allows the conversion of existing residences from single-family houses to two-family, three-family, or four-family residences. So in my view, the only sections that we have to meet are A through H of 4.30.2. Now, I know I say this because staff has done the analysis, and there's a nice picture, and she's done all these not saying she, but someone's done this calculation, and in the first page of staff report, it talks about proposal. The applicant submitted 2 separate special use permit applications. One is to turn the existing dwelling into a duplex unit. The other one is for the home office, which you've dealt with. The requirement for duplex are not satisfied under 4.30.3, and I would agree, yes, they're not. And staff goes on to say, as the location does not meet the abutting test requirement, and the proposal exceeds the density of the neighborhood. Probably true. I didn't do the analysis because it didn't need to be done, because I think we've agreed in the past, at least that's my recommendation, or my memory, that if we're applying under 430.2, we only have to meet those requirements. So if you go through my narrative, I take you step by step through our application and point out to you, in my view, how we meet each of those requirements, A through H. So, again, we know the context here. There was an addition put on the building in 1970, which essentially is a one-story structure attached to the two-story colonial that existed there for a few years prior to that. It has its own basement. It has its own ingress and egress. There's a separate point of ingress from the front and the rear. There's a sliding patio door out the rear that goes to a patio. So there's a front entrance exit and a back exit entrance. There is a separate bulk, I call it a bulkhead. You know, I don't know other people call it other things, to the basement area. There's 2 of those. Hatchways, I guess some people call them. There's one that leads into the basement area of the main house, and there's one that leads into the basement area of the accessory area. So just technically speaking, under the regulations, all right, first it says that the regulation requires that the building have a minimum building size of 1,600 square feet of floor area after the conversion. According to the assessor's card, there's about 2,900 square feet of finished floor area. The regulation requires that the gross ground floor area of the lot does not exceed 25% lot coverage. So I've done that calculation for you, and the ground floor area is about 12% of the lot area. Subsection C requires that each dwelling unit contain a minimum of 600 square feet, all right, and that no more than 2 bedrooms be provided in the additional unit. And you can see from our drawing, now this time, in addition to looking on the first page, which is the layout of the colonial 2-story building, which is about 1,800 square feet roughly, and then about 800 square feet in this 1-story accessory area that's located behind the garage. That's the accessory apartment, we'll call it. So we've got at least 600 square feet of floor area in each of the proposed 2 units. Subsection D provides that the conversion will have a minimum impact on traffic in the neighborhood. Brainerd Road is a very active road, as you know, I don't think the parking of 4 vehicles would impact the traffic on Brainerd Road. Obviously, you're aware of the planned project for across the street, directly across the street from this property. And there is a multifamily residential building 115 feet to the west, I believe, that has 36 units in 3 separate buildings. This has been used for, let's call it, this type of use since its inception in 1970. First, there was a family member that lived there, the Ferguson grandfather. His parents lived in the main house. He lived in the main house with the rest of his family. When did your grandfather pass away?
86.
Okay. And it's my understanding, again, he can correct, or the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's been essentially this other 1-story area has been rented out to tenants almost continuously since then. If it hasn't been occupied, it's only because he's searching for a tenant. The drawing shows that 4 vehicles. I attached the GIS map. The driveway is like 45 by 20 or something, certainly room for 4 vehicles. There's a requirement that state and regulations have been met following in undertaking the conversion. Again, we're going back to 1970. Other than the fact that Rick says there's no final CO, I guess, or no records of inspections, as I indicated to you under state statute, at this point, since it's been more than 6 years, that building requirement no longer applies. There's another section that requires that the architectural style of the exterior be maintained, and there's a picture there. It doesn't look any different than any other, because again, the accessory structure is behind the garage. So when you look from the street, you see the main colonial and the garage. You really don't even see the accessory part in the into the rear. Then it also requires that the square footage of the additional unit not exceed 75% of the original building. We've got 700, 800 square feet of new space, we'll call it, built in 1970, compared to a 1,900 square foot colonial, so that's less than 75%. It's less than half of the square footage of the original structure. Subsection E requires that all exterior stairways be enclosed. There are none. This is all these stairwells are interior. This is, again, it's a 1-story additional unit. Subsection F requires that a certain percentage of basement space be made available. As I said, there are 2 separate basements accessed from the interior and exterior of both of the dwelling units. And the last section talks about conversion of non-residential buildings, which is not what we're talking about here. And this H says, once we do this, we can't come back and ask for another, if we wanted 3, we'd ask for 3 now. We're only asking for 2. And, you won't see this applicant coming back for an additional unit. We're asking for the 2 that have existed. We think we meet all of the regulations that apply to this conversion of an existing building, and we'd ask for your approval.
Staff?
Good evening. So this is a application for a special use permit to turn the existing dwelling into a duplex unit. So this falls under 4.30.2 for duplexes. However, the applicant has requested to be under 4.30.2 for conversions, which This isn't exactly a conversion. It would be a conversion if he was actually a single-family dwelling converting into a duplex. These units are already existing. So he has a unit in the basement after we just heard the second and the first floor, and then the garage in-law. So the conversion of buildings doesn't really apply in this place, and regardless of that section, the duplex section comes into play since he's asking to be a duplex essentially with having two tenants, two units. So that's where the abutters lot, the abutting test comes into play, and then the density test comes into play. The abutters test was not satisfied. All of these surrounding properties are single-family as well. If he does become a duplex, he does exceed the density of that 500-foot radius proposal. I'm not going to do the math for you. I think you have a great understanding after last time I did the math breakdown for a duplex. So that's in your packet that you should have received as Exhibit 2 from my memo. Let's see. Anything else? The other thing is, it says that the ability for the conversion of units, if the applicant were actually going under that, the ability to add 1 unit per building can only be utilized once. If the basement bedroom is an actual unit, then that right there is not satisfying that section since you can only add the 1 unit. You can convert from the 1 family to 2 or 3, but again, that would be existing buildings may be converted, which this is not being converted since they already exist. Rick, do you have anything to add?
No, not at this time.
And that's all we have.
Questions, anyone? Walter? Vinnie? Nope.
One more thing, the building department did have a comment about being a legal 2-family, which will require a fire rating and some other changes that they can handle on their end when a permit is required. Thank you.
Joe?
Your density circle, which I have a problem understanding in the first place because all that's math, but that 36 unit is in there, right? In your circle?
Yep.
So this one extra thing would put that whole thing over?
I'm not sure what the standard point would be of that tipping scale. I have not seen a duplex request come in that did satisfy this proposal. The only assumption us planners can imagine would be in Thompsonville, where density is already pretty dense. I mean, this regulation has always been a little bit complicated to work with, which I'm thankful we're probably editing that with our future reg additions. But basically, I mean, you take the 500-foot area, subtract your net area, and that's kind of how you calculate out the density there. We don't include the right-of-ways, of course, or the street area. And then, of course, you have to look at all of these buildings and make sure they actually have COs, which is a whole endeavor in itself.
Okay.
Which, yeah. And then when you finally do the proposal for the duplex, which I did not do it for a 3-family, I've only done it for a duplex, that it exceeds the existing density within that 500-foot radius. So that's what that is. Did I answer your question?
My other question is, because this has been in existence for so long, so he automatically is granted a CO basically without a physical inspection because of the time?
The only issue that may come into play, the structure itself obviously has been there over a period of time. That's not the issue. The use, because there's an approval now for a second unit through this board, this commission, then I would think that the building department, because right now it's listed as an in-law apartment, if this is going to be a duplex, there still has to be an inspection now for fire rating, a separation, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct, absolutely.
Yeah,
So that would have to take place.
Okay, that was my next question. Okay.
It starts all over again.
Many of these houses that have been converted without an approval wind up going on the assessor's office as in-law apartments, as opposed to, and we don't get notified of such,
Right.
of the changes, unfortunately. But then it's a catch-up game on our part, and we run into these situations.
Right. Are both these units occupied?
No. One.
That's all I have for now.
He's looking for a tenant for the, when I visited back in the summer,
Yeah.
there was a tenant in the other, in the one-story unit.
Frank?
Yeah, same thing as my colleague was asking about the density with that large apartment complex on the corner of First Avenue in Brainerd, I believe it is.
Yep.
Yeah, and then in Rick's notes here, it says, on the assessor's card notes, this property, it says residential home as a two-family with an in-law apartment. That's in the violation complaint form? That's how it's classified in the town records currently.
That's what
as a
the
two-family.
assessors, and there's not a good communication between when the assessor does the property evaluations and which ones have zoning approval. So this is something that we deal with quite often with the in-laws especially, and sometimes the listed, I don't know how to.
So if this is listed like this in the town legal documents, why can't it just be an administrative approval upstairs and straighten it out through zoning? It's already listed.
Because your regulations require a special permit to allow the change. If it's not approved,
But how is it on the tax rolls as a two-family house?
the assessor's office is completely different than zoning. They don't abide by
Don't
the
do
zoning
zoning.
regulations. There's a disconnect there oftentimes. And we try to rectify it, and hopefully will at one point. But at this point in time, there's still the disconnect, and now we're catching up with all these homes that have added on an addition, and they've made it into a second residency.
So is he gonna get reimbursed for paying for a two-family house for taxes in all these years? If we don't approve this?
I don't know, did he use it for 2 years
I don't know. Just
for all
going by
those
what
years?
the legal-
Well, if he's using it,
I mean, it's the legal definition of it as a two-family house. No, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just reading what it says right here in front of me.
The property cards don't verify with zoning. Even the zones are sometimes incorrect on the property cards that we always have to call and ask them to
All
change
this
them.
stuff comes to us it's either through complaints or it's not this person's fault, it's the other office, it's this office, somebody moves in the neighborhood and files a complaint, and it all comes back to us to settle all these complaints between people and offices.
Land use
That's
is
not what our job is. It's not my job to settle that stuff. You guys should have this stuff straightened out.
It would be a lot easier if land use wasn't that complicated and relied on multiple jurisdictions and multiple different departments,
just-
but we
It's
totally
just
get it.
frustrating to have this
It's
kind of
very
stuff come before us.
frustrating, yes.
For me, it is. I'm not speaking for anybody else. For me, this is very frustrating to have this stuff
It's
come
even
before
more
us.
frustrating for staff who have to
Yeah,
deal with
this
it
is
every
not
day.
Thank you.
Terrence?
No, I'm all set.
Ken?
Yeah, how long have you been renting out the apartment in the back? You know, so I don't realize your grandfather.
Well, my
died.
parents rented it out after my grandfather died in 1986.
Okay, so it's been
So-
rented out as a duplex since 1986?
Oh, yeah.
So, to staff, does it meet, well, I guess it doesn't meet the building requirements because we don't know, right? Because there's never been had building people involved. But assuming, is everything, all the other criteria other than the special permit, I guess it doesn't meet the duplex requirements either.
It does not satisfy the duplex requirements.
Yeah. And it's mainly because of the density and the,
Density and the abutting lot. So this one fails both tests. There's
so if
two
someone
tests.
had decided to build a duplex there
They have
originally,
to come in for a special permit, and with the regulations as they're written right now,
otherwise
perform
it
those
would
two
not have been
tests.
approved.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
John?
I've got nothing.
Christian?
Yeah, I mean, as Attorney Landolina has said, we've come across this before in recent times, and we've been thrown by these two sections before. And as Georgie has said, 4.30.3 is like functionally impossible for significant part of town. Yeah, well, actually said basically excluding Thompsonville. And we've used 4.30.2 before for converting a single family to a duplex. I mean, it does meet the requirements there. I mean, yeah, it's obviously been a long-standing two-family, on tax assessor, at least in use, functional use. I mean, I think it's a reasonable conversion. I mean, yeah, it's obviously not new, so it's not like it's actively being converted. It's not like they got to flip a switch. But I mean, I guess to be fair, when they submitted back in 1970, it was for expanding the single-family house, which is so basically they're desiring to convert that to a duplex. So I mean, basically long and short is what I'm saying. Like I think it's reasonable what they're asking within our regulations 4.30.2. I mean, frankly, I don't like hearing of dwelling units that are not inspected and up to code. I would like to get that inspected and up to code as a proper duplex. I mean, and yeah, maybe there's certain building codes that are expired. That's outside my expertise. But as we just heard, I mean, there's fire code and duplex building code that would have to be adhered to. So that would require our approval. Sorry. Chair, looks like staff has a question.
The only thing is the bedroom in the basement is concerning to me. I'm not sure if that would be another unit or not. I don't know about the egress, but regardless of if it is a unit, I mean, 3-family isn't even allowed. It's only allowed in multifamily housing districts or Thompsonville. So the duplex residents, I mean, regardless of if it's a conversion to a duplex or not, duplexes require special use permits, and automatically that duplex section is triggered, kind of like the special permit section when somebody applies for a special permit. And then with that calculation sheet I provided you, every surrounding property, with the exception of the apartment complex, is also a single-family dwelling. There's not even a nearby 2-family to even really support him being a 2-family. So it's just kind of hard. It's a difficult situation in this sense.
As far as the basement part goes, I mean, that was brought up in technically the previous application. I mean, I'd like to hear them clarify, but I mean, if I'm being frank, it sounded like that was being used as means to prove residence and not as a dwelling unit. That's how I interpreted it. Maybe. Is that kind of more accurate?
Well, it was more germane to the last application,
Right. But would you
it's not a unit because it doesn't have kitchen facilities, and it can't be a 3rd family unit for that reason. All right. So my guess is that if the office space, which you now have determined he can't use, is relocated to somewhere else, he probably won't be in residence there at all. And if so, it would probably be so occasional as to not be considered.
What is the basement of the main dwelling unit? Is it basically a bedroom, like a finished bedroom?
It was an office at one time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no bathroom and
No.
no kitchen down
No.
there? Okay. All right, thank you.
On the original permit in 1970 for the addition, it shows bathroom on a in-law apartment, kitchen, fireplace, bathroom. It's checked off in there. It was done.
Thanks for that. I'm good, thanks.
Rob?
No, I'm good, thanks.
So if I may comment, again, obviously every special permit is decided on its own merits, but I'm not that old myself that I don't know for a fact that you've always, when I've been here, considered 4.30.2 in these occasions to be the relevant section and not 4.30.3. And I must respectfully disagree with staff that the density calculation is an important factor here. It's not. And staff can't have it both ways by saying you can't convert something that's already been converted But we have an illegal apartment here. Either it's an apartment or it's not. And it's not an apartment legally until you decide it is. So we're getting, that fact is being used against us in both ways. The density calculation, I would submit to you, is not relevant. So we meet the conditions, I believe, of 4.30.2 very clearly. And I think you have the ability to grant this application on that basis.
Go ahead.
Through the chair to staff, is there a path forward where we could approve this by a series of waivers? Or do we just approve the SPR?
So there are no waivers that are written within these types of regulations. Mr. Landolina was actually, I can't remember the exact time frame, but he had appeared before you with another client with the same issue of a duplex and a conversion of the building. And it was the same situation where I argued the duplex reg comes into play, and the end result was the duplex reg. I'm trying to find that file because I can't remember the address.
King Street.
Thank you. But that's
King Street.
That was the house that got moved
Yes.
when they were building the mall.
Exactly. When they built the mall, they moved the house over
that was a
there.
similar situation where we were faced with 430.2 versus 430.3, but ultimately it did not satisfy 430.3. The conversion reg is a very, 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 very old reg. I've been going back in the zoning regs to try and pinpoint when it was established. Have not really pinpointed that date just yet. But I mean, regardless, conversions need special permits. Duplexes need special permits. Having 2 units there automatically makes it a duplex. So it has to satisfy the duplex requirements in your regulations.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the fact that it's been there so long and it's, it's been getting rented out for years and years. And it seems to me there should be a way to grandfather it in. You know,
If I'm not mistaken, that was built before you even moved into that.
That's
You need
true.
to talk into the mic,
Yeah,
sir.
that's true, that's true.
I said, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was
Yeah,
built
it was there,
before
it
you.
was there when we lived there, yeah.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. I just, this space in the basement that you're saying it's just a bedroom. There's no bathroom in the basement, no nothing, and you're sleeping there. And is it part of the back unit or part of the main house?
There's no bathroom in the basement of
I-
the main house, in the basement.
So are you sleeping in the main house basement?
No, I stayed in the apartment in the back.
You're sleeping in
I
an
did when I have to stay there, I sleep in the back.
in the
in the
basement,
basement,
in
yes.
the back, in the bedroom. So, and help me.
It's not
because
even a bedroom, it's just,
help me.
Storage files.
You called it a basement. We're going to go with that, and it's in the basement. So, the apartment in the back does not have access to the basement because any use of that basement, because you have use of it to sleep in? They can't.
they have access to it. They have to come out of the apartment and go down through the hallway.
Okay, so you're basically entering their house, their apartment, and going down into their basement?
No, there's a hallway that separates, if you look on the print, there's a hallway that separates between the back of the garage and the main house.
Okay, so,
So in other words,
okay, I'm just trying to get a sense of how you're entering into this apartment, your bedroom in the basement.
I was going,
And,
If you look at this
yeah, I'm
drawing,
looking at this, and that's
So-
what I'm trying to figure out.
correct me if I'm wrong, you go through the garage,
correct.
there's a door at this corner of the garage that leads into this hallway, which is just an open space. And through that hallway, you can enter the accessory, or you have access right down to the basement stairs.
Okay.
That's the way he
That's how I'm trying to figure out how
Yeah,
he's
he
getting
doesn't-
into it. So he's basically
Or out the back
entering,
of the house.
you're basically going in through the garage.
Correct.
Okay.
Or the breezeway.
Okay.
There's a patio right here.
Can I
Bill.
clarify? What is what's the door to the outside? Is it adjacent to the kitchen behind the main house?
I don't know
At the
which one you're
breezeway?
on.
So there's the hallway. There's an entrance from the garage.
How do these people who live here get into their
They
house?
come through the garage. There's a fire door from the garage, and then it goes down the hallway into there, and there's a slider in the back by that closet.
Okay.
Big slider.
Okay, thank you.
To a concrete patio.
Sure, go ahead.
So is the family room's also connected to that hallway?
Yes, there's a door.
Okay, so there's the door from the garage into that hallway, and then there's a door from
The family room into the hallway,
to the hallway. Okay, so.
and then
all
there's a
right.
door going into the in-law apartment,
Yes.
and one door going down to the basements of the in-law
Okay, so if he's
apartment.
working in the family
Okay,
room here, he's
yeah,
going. he
all right.
can- okay.
We're
Okay,
I'm just
very
trying
good.
to get a
It's hard
sense.
to-
Thank you.
It's very confusing because it's really, there's no drawings of doors, so we're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to guess. Okay. Staff? anything?
We also had a difficult time trying to make sense of the submitted floor plans since they weren't professionally prepared, and we also could not tell where the doors were. And the garage is built on a slab, so I'm a little bit confused about where that other mentioning was.
It's, okay, all right. All right, this is another public hearing, so I have to open it up to the public. Anyone in the public like to speak for or against about the duplex? Name and address for the record, please.
Susan Sorrow, 18 Field Road. Once again, I'd like to state that I am an abutter to the property of which we are discussing. So, again, I have been in abutter since August of 2009. Mr. Ferguson reports that he got it from the estate of his father in 2011. His house was built in 1966, as was mine, and it's in the neighborhood known as Sherwood Manor Residential Neighborhood, which is all single-family residents by the Star Development Group. His use code that I saw on the tax card was 107, which is a single family with an in-law apartment, whereas mine is code 101, which is a residential dwelling. So I haven't seen anything with the duplex language on there. About the apartments that are nearby, his addition was added on 1970. Those apartments were built in 1971. And let's go back to the turn of mid-century here in Enfield. Enfield got on board with organized planning and development because of the
Ma'am, we know the history, okay? Can we,
It was built,
Please.
post-war for the baby boomers. The Stars had covenants in place. I know a lot of covenants have been taken out of because of illegal bias in it. But basically, they were there to preserve the consistency, uniformity of the private single resident uses and purposes to maintain and protect our property values. When I bought my house, I was told by the realtor that there were covenants in place that I couldn't have borders and things like that because, again, it was a single family residence area. I know in some of the paperwork, some of the narrative from Mr. Ferguson says that, it's this apartment has always been there. He has also stated that he had his office there on and off for 40 years. He's a former contractor. I have a hard time trying to place how he doesn't know when this all happened and converted. It's always like, oh, it's always been there, always been there. In 1970, let's just pop back really quick. Any of you might know the 70s show. everyone added on additional rooms, especially those Colonial Stars. They didn't have a bedroom on the first floor. There's many homes within my neighborhood. You can see the additions off the back. It was one of those things. It was like the parents' area, the rumpus room, if you will, with the shag carpeting and the nice fireplace. The bathroom there. I did not see on the paperwork that there was a permitted or, a request for a kitchen in that space, because it was hard for me to read those older documents. So I apologize for that if I don't know if that kitchen was actually on there or not at the time. But I would like to call attention to 4.50.10, which is temporary conversions to allow accessory apartments. As Mr. Ferguson stated, there was, grandfather there and parents there. Was this additional room, at that time for a family member? Yet you go further into that particular statute, ordinance, whatever they're called. And once something has been converted for, help out a family member, they're gone, or it changes hands and no longer applies, it has to be deassembled and basically integrated back into the mass of the single-family home. I would like to say I have to give Mr. Ferguson credit for the renters he's had there. They have been good people. There's just been a couple incidences here and there. So I will certainly say that. His apartment looks lovely on the ads. I wish my kitchen looked like that. But being a former contractor, he has to know when that all went in, were there building permits, were there, everything that goes in the permitting process with contractors. And that's what concerns me about all this. I am one of the abutters, like they were saying, there are no other two-unit dwellings anywhere around us. I'd like to bring up meeting minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission from August 5th of 2021, where there was discussions about in-law apartments versus ADUs and all that. And if you go back and look at some of the comments about the effect it could have on single-family neighborhoods, trying to keep development that is predictable and consistent. There was one comment by Commissioner Limo at the time stating it's troubling that a single-family residential subdivision could easily become a multi-family development, considering the opening up of more ADUs. So I won't go into that too much, but that's basically my point. We are a single-family residential area. It's all over Enfield. Open up the GIS, you'll see the star developments everywhere. We're talking hundreds, even thousands. You either had a colonial, you had a Cape, or you had a ranch. And we cannot open up to multi-families all throughout these single-family residential areas. I understand the need to make income. If you think about even if he charged $1,000 a month for each one of those units, since he's had it since 2011, 2012, we're talking about him making well over $300,000. But that's his prerogative, I guess. My take on the whole thing is just because something's been happening forever doesn't make it right. We used to dump sewage all the time in rivers, and we're gotten a lot better about that. But maybe if there's some kind of condition that when he goes to sell the property, it is converted back to a single family with the additional space behind the garage, all as one single family unit. I really protest the idea of dubbing it a duplex and making it that definition, because then that can open up all of Enfield, all single-family residential neighborhoods to this potential. And that's not why the neighborhoods were built the way we were. I think there would be a lot of extended families out there who would love to buy a property with that extra space in it at some point. He could probably even find a renter that could rent the single-family side, the colonial side, and then the added apartment, should that opportunity come up to him. So I'm going to leave it at that and kind of leave that in your hands, but I'm very adverse to the idea of giving him legal status as a duplex in a single-family established neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
For the record, Carl Landolina. Just a couple of quick notes about the comments you just heard. First of all, the temporary conversion section was adopted in 2013, so this condition existed way before that. So that's not really relevant. Even though my client was a contractor, and apparently he says had an office out of his house, he wasn't a contractor in 1970 when this occurred. He was probably about 7 or 8 years old, I'm guessing. So, you know, it's not his fault or whatever. You can't put the blame on him. His parents did this. And it's been the things that gaps that I'm hearing aren't missing. They're in the record. His grandfather lived there from 1970 to 1980 something when he passed, and then it got rented out to anybody who needed an apartment, just like any other duplex. So again, I'll stress for the fourth time, this is a conversion under 4.30.2. We meet the requirements, and we're asking you to grant our application. Thank you.
Yes.
Just one thing that I'd just like to address. I mentioned before that there was violations issued for it, and there was an appeal. Part of that appeal that was denied was the suggestion that he go before this commission to get an approval back in 2023. The narrative from that original application was for an in-law apartment. And I'll read the narrative to you just so you have an understanding of why myself and Matt Davis had an issue with the application at that time. So it was applying for an in-law apartment on my property at 78 Brainerd Road. The person living with me is an extended family member. The lot meets the minimum square footage of 1,700 square feet. I live at this address. The in-law apartment was built in 1970, and a building permit was issued and is attached. The building permit is that yellow building permit that's for the additional living space that we have and you have in your packet. The entrance is not facing the street. There is only one mailbox. The in-law apartment has more than 2 exits, and the house is on public water and sewer. And the only reason that's concerning to me is how they're viewing it, because, as I said before, there was a recent listing through Zillow, again listing it as a rental of $1,700 for a one-bedroom in-law apartment with garage. So there's just some confusion on me on how something is being represented or has been represented and now is before you for something totally different.
And it does not satisfy your duplex requirements.
I know this is confusing and a little convoluted, but this has been going on for 2 years now. And frustrating on our part, too, just because, you know, we don't want a situation or situations like that. We try to rectify these situations as best we can. But some of these things become very complicated. So that's ultimately why, at some point, it may have to come before you as decision makers for the zoning regulations to make a decision. It's just, as I said, very convoluted.
That and the story changed from I'm living there and an extended family member's living there as an in-law apartment, and now this is 2 separate families. So that
Well, there was a time.
Right.
Let me speak, okay? If I were you, I would sit there for the rest of the evening. Thank you.
That's good advice.
There was a time when it was used as an in-law. Now, he's not a lawyer.
No.
He doesn't understand the difference between in-law and duplex and all of that. It says on the card it's an in-law, so that's how he put it in the paper that way or whatever.
According to that narrative 2 years ago,
Yeah.
he was living there and a family member was living in the back portion.
He was
and
living
now-
there 2 years ago?
That's what's in his narrative.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
his narrative. And now this narrative is, I've got two separate
Right.
families.
I'm dealing with the facts on the ground as they exist now, since I got involved.
Do you see where our confusion lies?
Yes, but let's take all the extraneous chafe, and the question for you is, does this meet the requirements of 4.30.2? Because that's the part of the regulation we applied under, and I would have thought that staff would have welcomed this application because this takes care of apparently a long-standing violation, but I guess I'm wrong about that.
Okay. Anything else?
Madam
Frank?
Chair, since I was called out, can I respond?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, for, about the ADUs, just so it's clear, your comments were taken out of context. When we were discussing ADUs, we were discussing a state mandate that the town had to either accept or opt out. ADUs are separate, freestanding buildings that could be constructed in somebody's backyard. This is not an ADU. So at the planning and zoning, we did vote not to participate, and then that vote went to the council, and I believe at the time the council voted not to participate in that mandate. So an ADU would turn every residential neighborhood into a multifamily because you could just build another building behind your house. This is not that. I just wanted to clarify it for the record because you did mention my name, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
The one last thing I'll add, and then I promise I'll go sit back there with the quiet folks. In the last few that I've done, you've always had a condition that the building official and the fire marshal are satisfied with the fire rating and separation and all of that, and that certainly is appropriate, absolutely. So with that, I'll take my seat. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Sure.
Susan Sorrow, 18 Field Road. I completely understand that. I read the entire minutes. My correlation to that was that we were talking about more people in the same amount of space on a plot of land. And there was a lot of comments about concerns on infrastructure, schools, et cetera. And that can easily happen if we start converting a lot of single-family residences into duplexes.
Well, they would have to go through the process and come here for permitting. This was a state statute that we were going to have no choice.
Yep.
You were just going to be able to come here and do it.
Right.
So it's a completely different thing, completely. Not even in the same ballpark. And with all due respect, just for the record, ADUs are not
Well,
this.
in in-law or additional space permitted in 1970, turning into an in-law apartment, somewhere morphing along the lines with a kitchen in there and all that, and then turning into a full-on rental unit, to me shows a progression of a lot of balls being dropped along the way.
I couldn't agree with you more there. You can see my frustration.
Okay.
You heard me.
But
I don't like this kind of stuff coming before us.
It adds
I
extra
don't.
people in where generally it
You have
wasn't
something on,
planned to
like
be
I
there.
explained, there's something on the tax assessor's card calling us a two-family house. I just underlined it. It's right there. And I dislike this stuff.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
all due respect, and I appreciate the dialogue with you.
Okay. And the only other thing is, I understand 1970, we're probably in the same age. However, he's been a contractor over the years, and clearly that apartment has had upgrades and probably improvements done. My concern is about the kitchen, whether that was ever permitted. I am the daughter of a district fire chief, and you have something combustible there, and you have an oil tank down below there in the basement he talks about. That's one of the oil tanks is down there, and I believe there's a laundry area down there too. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing 3138.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, and then we will have discussion.
Yes,
Roll call.
to close the public hearing, roll call. Linda DeGray,
4.
Frank Alamo.
4.
Kenneth Alinsky.
4.
Vinnie Grillo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
John Petronella is 4.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Who seconded the closing public
I
hearing?
did.
And
Okay.
John made the motion, right? Thank you.
Okay. Before we discuss, and, no, go ahead, let's make the motion, and then we can have discussion.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3138, 78 Brainerd Road, application for special use permit for a duplex. Kevin Ferguson, applicant owner, map 36, lot 293, R33 zone.
Second.
Okay. I'm conflicted, like most of us are. It's been there since the 70s. We don't know when the kitchen was put in. We don't know when all that. We don't know that. That's, between this gentleman's father and his grandfather and when all that was done. My huge concerns are the lack of possible firewalls between and having a building inspection done and the sleeping in the basement. And I feel that if this does get approved, that would have to be very specific site condition. That the building and fire inspections would be, and that bedroom that's in the basement, I don't even know if there's egress. I don't know anything about this because we don't have any pictures. We just have drawings. So that's I'm still sitting here on the fence, so. Anyone else like to speak? Go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I'm sitting on a fence. It's been there. It's been used as an apartment. I would like to see us be able to take these types of things and take the in-law name off of it, because if we start saying it's an in-law unit, then there's all kinds of regulations that go with that, that unless you live in one part of the house, this particular person can't rent the other part. So it's a whole different ballgame. But I'm also at a point that says it's not meeting some of the regulations we have already and some of the things we have. But it's been there, so can we really say you can't have it? I mean, it's been there since 70. That's more years than a lot of the people in this room were not even alive. That doesn't include me. I was well alive by then. But you have to. We have to think about that and figure out what to do. And it's, I say, I'm on the fence at this point. Although my gut feel says we ought to find a way to approve it. That's it. Thank you.
Frank?
I kind of go along with the chair saying I'm not on the fence relative to the two-family part of it. And what all the things that the vice chair said as well. I am in full agreement that if I think the jurisdiction, I'm not sure. I know on the fire side it's 3-family and above, but I know I'm for maybe having some language about an inspection for fire code and public safety. If we approve this, I think that's an important piece. But I think the fire code and building code overlap each other, so I'm not sure about that. And I think, just so we're clear, we have to take out of our mind and off the table about that basement thing. Because you can go probably in half of the houses around here, especially in Thompsonville, working for the fire department for 36 years. I don't even want to tell you what we found in basements, never mind a bed or a mattress. So I think we should just take that out of our mind and concentrate on the 2-family or the 2 units. And again, and real focusing on public safety for the people who may live here. Thank you.
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
Just a minute? Just for staff, if I could ask you, if we say we're going to allow a special permit, will that automatically bring on an inspection?
You'd have to have a specific condition in there.
Okay.
And you can do it for a whole inspection of the whole dwelling unit,
Yeah.
which would include the basement or whatever. I mean, as a living space, there's a claim that there's a living space there, at least a sleeping space. So if that's part of your approval, that would be fine.
Okay, so it wouldn't be automatic, it would be as a matter of if we made it a condition.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just one other thing that we were just going to address here. Under 3.40.4, nonconforming uses, this is a nonconforming use because it's been in existence. And I'll just read you that section. Any use of a building or lot which was legally in existence prior to the adoption of these regulations, January 31st, 2002, or amendments thereto, and is not permitted within the zoning district in which it is located shall be designated as a nonconforming use. So in that sense, this has been in existence as a nonconforming use. It was there, we have testimony that it was there prior to 2002. So you can probably apply that towards an approval process as part of it and put in the conditions that you see fit.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I think this case is so unique that I'm not really worried about a whole bunch of people now going out and converting their houses from single family to duplexes. This has been there, it's been used. So I think it's a very unique case, and I'm kind of leaning towards approval as long as we get the right conditions in place.
John?
Yeah, I've got a lot of issues with this. I mean, first of all, it was clearly built with deception, okay? I don't feel that we should be here as a commission to try to fix an applicant's problem. It's not our problem, and I'm hearing things like it is our problem. No, it's not our problem. If we reward bad behavior like this, tomorrow you're going to see 1,000 applications for additions for extra living space that are going to end up being apartments. I just can't get behind this, in this neighborhood. So I respectfully can't support this application for those reasons. Thank you.
Benny?
Or 19, just yesterday, it doesn't belong there. It was illegally put there. It's inconformant, and it doesn't belong in a residential area. I also cannot agree with this myself. A duplex, it's residential. It doesn't belong there. I'll be honest with you, that's not my neighborhood, but I sure wouldn't want that in my neighborhood because I live in the same situation where they're all ranches and single-family houses. Doesn't belong there. I just, that's my opinion.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure.
So I agree, John, with John's comments on we shouldn't be awarding somebody doing something wrong. But I think what was really important, John, in your comments were that we're going to see people come before us with applications. And that's what didn't happen here. And when we do see that, they're going to have to comply or they're not going to get approved. So the application part, I agree, but this thing is so darn old. But if people come before us, I welcome that new application.
If I may, what I meant was applications for building permits to build additional space, a living space, which can be built or which can be converted into an apartment, like what happened here.
So you think there's a bunch
without a final inspection?
Do you think there's a bunch of more of these nightmares out there? And somebody can come in and say.
Could be, but.
Yeah, we don't know.
but If we reward this behavior now, you may see more of it happen. So 10 years down the road, you're going to see more citations and things coming back before us.
I think people should come before us if they're going to do something like this, and in this case, it didn't happen.
Well, it didn't happen, and it's old,
Yeah.
but it's still not our issue to fix, in my opinion.
I agree.
It is
No,
what it
it's-
is. It is what it is.
I think we're both kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah,
here, but
yeah.
it's crazy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes?
We do have a number of the in-laws that don't have special use permits.
67. 67, that's through the assessor's office that have not been approved, that we're going through and trying to rectify. The other situation is too, if something comes through now that, I don't want to say suspicious, but could be turned into something that is not what was represented by us, I have them fill out a form saying that this residence will remain a single-family dwelling unit, and if any additional living space is conducted in this addition, then it would be subject to enforcement action and a violation of the regulations. And only that as a means of trying to avert this type of activity. But that's about all we can do with some of the stuff that comes through now.
Does that get recorded? That signature paper? Does it get recorded?
It goes in with their file,
Goes in.
whether it be a building permit
that's
or
great.
or something through our office.
That's a really good process. It's a really good procedure to have. Too bad it wasn't there in 1970.
But we have to go by what our current regulations are, and it is listed as an in-law apartment. The in-law is no longer there, so that means the kitchen and this unit should be returned back into part of the living space of the main house. So that's a regulation, and as it's listed as an in-law apartment, I think that's another piece that we have to look at, that our regulation says it has to be incorporated back into the house, which it hasn't, and that's another thing, is we have regulations for a reason. And yes, there are people who do what they do. We can't stop people from doing what they do. They just do. But there's several things here that we have to really consider. And the neighborhood, the fact that it was an in-law apartment, it was built in the 70s for an in-law apartment. Our regulations say it has to be incorporated back into the house. It never was. And this was just continued to be perpetuated by renting it out and to non-resident, non-family members. So that's, and now we're being told there's 76 more?
67.
Or 67, all right. 67 that are out there right now that aren't compliant. So we would be opening another can of worms. So, any other discussion? Yes, Christian?
I mean, if I may, and the in-law, so the in-law designation it has right now is on the assessor's card.
Right.
Which is not relevant to us immediately. So they're not applying for an in-law apartment, and I think it's, I mean, to me, I think it's pretty clear because he doesn't live there. I mean, if he lived there, he could be applying under the in-law regulation, but he doesn't live there, so he's not even trying. So he's applying as a duplex. So I think that's the relevant part here. So, I mean, to me, I think the relevant part is the conversion and the nonconformity, the longstanding nonconformity. So I just want to put that out there.
But he advertises it as an in-law apartment.
Right. I mean, he advertised it because that's what the public record says. So I mean, he's being consistent with what the assessor's card says. So.
But not consistent with our regulations.
Right, and so this is the way to correct that. I mean, if this were to be approved, the expectation would be that he would update his listing to say, this is one unit in a duplex, and then hopefully the assessor's office would update their listing to show it's a two-family. So I think, I'm not voting, but if you guys were to approve this, I think that all happens post-approval, and these things get cleared up. And going back to your original point, 100% agree with the conditions that you recommended. I think those would be great conditions to add.
If I may, through the Chair, Commissioner D'Antonio, if I may, the assessor's card says it's a residential home as a two-family with an in-law apartment. A
Oh,
two-family with.
I missed that. Then.
Correction.
Yeah, it's
Actually,
right on the note.
correction.
So I'm just saying what I'm reading in front of me.
Okay, so then I would expect it to be changed to just a two-family, no in-law.
Actually, it does say single family with in-law, use code 107. The two part comes from the occupancy, so it's a different.
There are different sections on the assessor's card.
Yeah.
So the occupancy is listed as two. And then as you move further down, the use is listed as single-family with in-law. So that makes up the two occupancies.
And use code 107 is also single.
I'm just
family.
reading what's in front of me.
I know, and
But it would-
probably from what I typed.
It is what you typed. It's exactly what you typed. It's the only thing I have to read.
And that's how I get it off the property, off the card.
That's what makes this stuff so much harder.
It is what it is.
Welcome to land use.
Two-family.
Land use is
Two
hard.
So if this application
Okay.
were approved, though,
We need the
it
conditions.
would not be an in-law apartment.
No, it'd be for a
a
duplex.
two-unit, yes.
And what you're looking at, your duplex requirements.
Yes.
I think we should think of the public safety conditions of approval.
So, anyone want to make an amendment to the motion with the approvals?
Sure. Do you want,
The conditions, right,
is that the secretary to do that, or can it come from the floor?
can come from the floor if,
Do you want to do it?
Yeah. Madam Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the proposal
okay.
to add the conditions. And let's see, what were the conditions? We want to, following conditions,
Fire and building,
building and fire inspection,
no sleeping in the belt,
no sleeping in the basement
without inspection.
without inspection,
And this is a continued non-conforming use.
and it would be a continued non-conforming use.
So the building department will take care of fire code as well.
And
Okay.
And so I don't have to mention,
No, so you want the building department to make an inspection of the units
Right,
and inspect for the firewall rating?
yes.
yep,
And there's no sleeping in the basement prior to those inspections.
Anything else?
That's inspection. Without inspection. Can't read my scribble? And this would be a continued non-conforming use.
need a second.
Second? Second. The staff, I had an earlier meeting with the town planner this afternoon,
Frank,
and she said we'd be out of here early.
yeah, well,
It's okay.
Lauren said we'd be out of here early.
yeah, well,
He lied.
It's okay, I live here.
and I told her she could go home, she didn't have to come.
When I say I live here, I mean in this building, like I live here, so.
Okay,
So let me understand, excuse me, the conditions are an add-on to the motion?
yes.
Yeah, so you did it
An
a little
amendment to
bit.
the motion.
Yeah, you did it a little bit
Yeah,
oddly,
so
but
what
your
we're voting
motion.
on
the amended motion
Is the amended motion?
with those
I
conditions.
think we have to vote on the amendment first, don't we?
Right, we do have,
We have to vote on the amendment, then on the motion.
No,
Okay.
no, you don't
Just
have
so-
to. No, if you amend a motion, you just made a new motion to amend that motion. So there's a motion made. Now you need to vote.
Right, now, this is just a one vote, that's it?
Yep, so this is, you're voting
approval
for.
with the amendments?
With the amended motion, including those site specifics that you just stated.
Don't we have to vote to add the amendment?
I believe we have to vote to
So you
approve the
just,
amendment.
you just rescinded your initial motion by making an amended motion. So you had a first and a second. Now it's time to cast vote.
okay,
Got it.
just to be confused.
I think you're right.
Glad I
I
asked.
don't think we're right.
And I think you are right.
I promise you're good.
Okay, so we're going to do roll call, right? All right, Linda DeGray,
Against,
Frank Alamo,
4.
Kenneth Zelinski,
4.
Vinnie Grillo,
Against.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
and John Petronella is against.
and the reason I'm against is it is an in-law unit that's no longer being used as an in-law unit. It needs to be incorporated into the house, and it does not meet the density of the area. What was the count, John?
And 4-3 it passed.
Yeah, but I still have to give a reason why I voted.
Everybody has to give a reason.
Right, so,
Everybody that votes no has to give a reason.
all right.
I voted against because it doesn't meet regulation 4.30.3 B and C.
I also voted against for the same reason. It doesn't satisfy our requirements for the zoning regulations for the duplex.
Okay, all right, you got your duplexer. And no sleeping in the basement until it's been inspected. Okay, moving on, we have no old business, new business.
Madam Chair, do you mind calling a quick minute
Okay,
recess?
how about a 5-minute recess? Everybody,
Sounds good to me.
okay, we're have a 5-minute recess. we're back in session.
We are.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, we're back in session,
wait.
yes. SPR 1959, 1695 King Street has been tabled. SPR 1960, 45 Windsor Street, Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, application for, is SPR number 1960, 45 Windsor Street, application for a second driveway. EGO Holdings LLC, applicant owner, map 27, lot 52, TD2 zone.
Second.
Okay. Name and address, sir, for the record.
Hello, is it on? Yeah.
Yeah, you're on.
Hello. Thank you for your time. My name is Eric Taub. I live in 49 Captain Road, Long Meadow, Massachusetts. Sorry,
Okay,
I'm a little
relax, relax.
Thank you.
You're just on TV. Relax.
Thank you.
Go ahead, tell us what your project
live
is.
TV.
Sure. So I submitted some floor plans. I think this year or last year we bought a lot on Windsor Street, and then a couple months later, the abutting house came for sale. So we bought the house. It has a garage on the back. So our plan is to knock down the garage, and we're gonna build. I think you probably have the. Oh, did I bring the wrong floor plans? I did.
Yes, we do. We have the floor.
You have the site
Yes.
plans. So we're gonna knock down the garage, and we're gonna build 3 duplexes. The surveyor and the engineer designed the layout to make it. So we have 4 parking spots. We need to have a second curb cut on the left side of the 45, what is this, 45 Windsor Street. So in order to have 4 parking spots for 45 Windsor Street. So that way we have nice, like a backyard for all these 8 units. So that's why we're here before you guys, because apparently we need a special permit for a second curb cut. I think if you look at the site plan, there's currently, on Church Street, there's currently 3 curb cuts already on the 2 lots. And on 53, and on Windsor Street, we already currently have 2 curb cuts too, I think. So, I mean, just to make it equal with the 3rd curb cut, it would be all the same in the front and in the back. So that's why we're here before you.
Okay, Steph?
So this was a fairly simple application to review. Second, drive accesses are allowed via site plan review approval from the commission. Duplexes are allowed in TD2 via zoning permit, which this applicant has applied for. These two lots had a title search conducted a couple months ago where it was determined they were eligible for a free cut. They split both these properties. Now you have the 4 properties. This is not a re-subdivision. It's 2 separate parcels doing their first free cut, resulting in 2 parcels of that 1 parent parcel. You just have 2 properties. So this is for specifically the property at 45 Windsor Street and TD2 zone. There's 1 existing curb cut, and now the applicant is proposing a second. All departmental concerns and reviews have been completed with the exception of engineering, and then traffic completed their review. However, they just had the 1 comment due to the property at 41 Windsor Street having a sidewalk directly in front of it with no buffer space. The sightline for vehicles exiting the proposed second driveway at 45 may be very limited. It may cause concern someone biking on the sidewalk while a vehicle is exiting with restricting sight distance to the building at 41. There are no site-specific recommendations, and then no planning concerns with the proposal of where his curb cut will be. That's all I have.
Okay. Yes, Vinnie? Your mic.
Given the curb cut, you're just taking the cars basically off the road and putting them back onto the yard, because if he doesn't get the curb cut, he's pretty much parking on the roads.
Essentially, yeah. And I know
Thompsonville.
Thompsonville, we have had many discussions about the parking issues, and with one of them being specifically about the on-street parking, especially during winter. But I mean, essentially, a solution is having an additional curb cut on a property could help potentially reduce that problem. And I believe, I'll defer to the applicant applicant to speak about his reasonings as to why he wants to curb cut, but it does satisfy the regulations from what I could tell during my review, and there's nothing from the other departments gave a red flag. They all completed their reviews, so.
Okay, awesome. Yep, thank you, thank you.
And Joe?
No, I'm good.
Walter?
I'm good.
Frank?
Just to be clear, this is just for the curb cut and driveway, not for the houses that are going
Nope.
to be keyed off of Church
That's
Street.
correct, just the curb cut.
Right, so the Church Street lots are completely different?
Yeah, those are already
Keyed
existing.
from Church Street, and this is keyed from Windsor. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Terrence?
I'm good.
Ken?
I'm good.
John? Christian? Rob? Actually, I like the idea of taking cars off of Windsor Street, because if you've gone down it lately, it's like very, very scary. So taking cars and putting them in a driveway, I like the idea. I don't have an issue with this, so. Anything you'd like to add? No? Okay. Staff?
I just am sorry that you had to wait so long.
Sorry, we got a little carried away. Okay.
He was probably afraid to come up after what he just saw.
Really? I'll entertain a motion, Mr. Secretary.
I'd like to make a motion to approve SPR number 1960, 45 Windsor Street, application for a second driveway, Ego Holdings LLC applicant owner, map 27, lot 52, TD2 zone.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Frank Alamo.
4.
Kenneth Alinsky.
4.
Vinnie Grillo. 4. Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Okay.
Can I just
You're all
add,
set.
can I just add, this should be an example for how plans should be submitted, not the previous one we went through.
Yeah.
You all have a good evening.
You too, thank
Look,
you.
thanks for investing in Thompsonville.
Okay. And moving on, we are moving on to PH 3078, Strand location, Union Square, request for building permit extension. Come on down. Yeah,
I remember him.
it's Attorney Smith. Hello.
Hi. Good evening. Good
Hello.
evening. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you hear? Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission, assistant planner, driver, and professional staff. For the record, my name is Chris Smith. I'm a land use attorney of counsel with the law firm of Zabel and Schallenberg, and I appear before you this evening on behalf of Impact Residential Development concerning a request to extend a building permit condition with a special permit site plan that you approved 2 years ago on December 21st in 2023. At the outset, I would like to just thank you for the opportunity to do this remotely from Denver, which is where I currently live. I would like to indicate that on behalf of Impact Residential this evening, in addition to myself, Peter Wood is present, and Peter is with Collaborative Development Consulting, who's been working on this residential community with Impact for a number of years now, since the approval and before that. I would also like to note that due to another commitment, Logan Kiewig, who is Director of Development for Impact Residential, is not able to attend this evening, but extends his appreciation to the Commission for taking up this request at this time. I think this is a little more straightforward than the public hearing you had, but this, again, you did approve a special permit site plan for a residential community for the subject property that occurred on December 21, 2023. One of the conditions, condition number 4, was that a building permit be secured within a 24-month time period, within a 2-year time period. The next condition did provide for compliance with the site plan, as you're well aware, under Section 8-3, subsection I of the Connecticut General Statutes. When you have a site plan approval, you have 5 years to commit I'm sorry, complete the work or the construction associated with the work that was approved. This request is, the reason for the request is that Impact has been assembling financing through various funding sources after the approval from this commission. And as you're probably aware, in this current economic climate, the process is taking longer than initially anticipated. However, it is anticipated that within the next year, the financing will be secured, and that will enable final construction level plans to be finalized and submitted for the building permit. So we do anticipate that the requested 2-year extension will accommodate, again, completing the assemblage of financing required for this residential community and then preparing the final detailed plans to submit to the commission. And unless you have any questions for me on behalf of Impact Residential and Mr. Wood and myself, we respectfully request that this request on this building permit condition be approved by the commission. Thank you.
Okay, staff?
Good evening. So the applicant and their attorney did a great job summarizing it. The request would be for an additional 24 months, I believe. And they've done their post-approval items. They're working through them. Hopefully, I'll get the final plans any day that are sitting in Frank's office. But yeah, it's just for an extension of 24 months.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah,
Yep, go ahead.
I had one question. Could you kind of explain why the delay? Is it strictly just financial issues, obtaining financing, or is it something else, building type issues, or some kind of issues with the building and the lot that you need to work out?
No, it's nothing related to, this is on, correct?
Yeah.
It's nothing related to the lot or plans. We are intending to go forward with the same site plan and elevations and so forth that we presented and were approved here 2 years ago. It's entirely financing. We do have certain commitments in place. As you probably know or can appreciate, public financing is becoming more difficult, and it's taken longer than we anticipated, but we are continuing to work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Do you still have rights to the land and are able to develop it?
We still have site control of the parcels that are intended to be built on, yes.
Is it under your control and ownership or whatever?
Yes, we have a purchase and sale agreement for each of the properties that the development would be on.
And those haven't been executed yet?
The purchase and sale agreements have been executed. We have not closed on the properties yet.
Okay.
That would be done when all of the financing's in place to close on construction, and the properties would be purchased at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3078, Strand location, Union Square, request for building permit extension, and that would be for how long?
24 months.
For 24 months.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Frank Alamo.
4.
Kenneth Alinsky.
4.
Vinnie Grillo. 4. Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Sorry we made you wait that long.
No, thank you, and our best to you and your families over the Thanksgiving holiday. Take care. Thank you.
Too.
Thank you very much.
It was worth
Thanks,
the wait.
Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Commissioners' correspondence. Anybody? Christian? You're good, huh? Okay.
It's only been a week.
You know? Come on, and why you go to another meeting? Okay, Director of Planning report.
There's no report. I checked with her. I'm covering for her in her absence, where Rick and I are, and there's nothing to report.
And we're very happy you both are here. No administrative approvals. We got our packets for next meeting.
So applications to be received. There's one that came in that did not make agenda posting in time. This one is PH 3139MA, which stands for map amendment. This is for Stock River Street, an application for a zone change from TD1 to TD4 for properties known as 22, 24, 28, 38, 44, 48, 50, and 52 South River Street. South River Realty LLC applicant owner and Matthews Landing LLC owner. Map 8, lots 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 22, and 21, currently TD1 zone.
Okay. All right. No opportunities, unresolved issues, no executive session.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much.
10:01
And it's
p.m.
10 o'clock.
Okay, Lori, we'll be out early.